Sorry for making you anxious. Hopefully, I'm not going to make you too anxious. It's awesome to have you on. Ola, thanks, man, for joining us, dude. It was wonderful to meet you at SA's in person. Thank you for the wonderful message, and thank you for what you told me at the comp, man. It meant the world to me. It's like, this is why we do what we do. So great to have you on this episode of Coffee and Conversations with Champions. And maybe we can annoy Blue Shirt Guy because you don't have an echo. And we do have to, he really wants to come back on the show. So we'll get him back on. But welcome to Coffee and Conversations with Champions. And it's awesome
Thank you,
to have you
Adam.
here. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into your powerlifting journey.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I am a student at the University of Johannesburg. I'm currently pursuing a degree in computer science. And yeah, so my powerlifting journey started in university. So in high school, I wasn't the athletic kid or the kid that did extra curricular activities. I was actually a bookworm and a nerd. So I think that's interesting. And I found the gym and I found powerlifting in university.
Okay. How did you find it? Was it just sort of one day hitting the gym and then walking past and thought, "Hey, I'll give this a try"? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I mean, you get to university. I think I remember I started going to the gym in my first year, and I think it was just the thing of you get to university, it's this big, intimidating place with so many people, and you just, I guess it was just trying to find an outlet and find something to do. So I started going to the gym. I actually started as a bodybuilder, not really training for powerlifting. You know, there's a joke that powerlifters are failed bodybuilders, but yeah,
100%.
but I
Yeah.
think
The powerlifters are bodybuilders who've discovered their true skill set.
I mean, yeah, you could put it that way.
Or that we
So
love
yeah,
food more, hey?
of
Yeah.
course, we don't have to be as
Okay, cool.
restricted.
So how long were you involved on the bodybuilding side for?
Um, Maybe a year and a half.
Okay. And how was that? How did that go? I mean, were you happy with the results? Was it something you were enjoying?
Yeah. So yeah, I was definitely happy with the results. I think it was noticeable, but I think what made me lean more towards powerlifting was I think powerlifting or bodybuilding is a lot more subjective, whereas with powerlifting it's a lot more objective. We have numbers, you can actually see your progress in real time with facts and figures.
Much
So
better for
that made
nerds, right?
right. So I think
100%.
that made me lean towards powerlifting and also just starting to find powerlifting as an actual competitive sport. So online, I started watching Russell Ohi, Roswell on YouTube, and he was a big part of why I started powerlifting. And I think for a lot of people as well, they mentioned it was Russ that really got them
Yeah, yeah.
into the sport.
Absolutely awesome. So, what was your first sort of foray into powerlifting? Were you just working the numbers, trying to build your own program at the university gym? Where did it go from there?
Yeah, so yeah, it definitely started out as that. Just wanting to be, you know, I know myself, I know my body, so I'll just try and come up with a program and, you know, try and pull from different sources, learn as much as possible about strength training, progressive overload. So I did that for a while, got some progress out of it, but I knew that, you know, I could definitely do a lot more. And that was when I started running programs, free programs online.
Right. And how did the programs work out for you?
Yeah, so at first it was a mixed bag. Intermediate programs too early in my powerlifting career and
Hmm.
didn't make that much progress until I actually was like, okay, you have to earn your stripes. You have to start with the beginner programs. You have to start with strong lifts, with your 5x5s, and those kind of programs. And then you earn the right to go on to the intermediate programs. And once I went back to, you know, those beginner programs, simple linear progression, I think that really kick started my journey.
100%. So I love the fact that you mentioned, you were a bookworm, you were a nerd. I was the worst kind of nerd because my studying abilities were terrible. I struggled to read. Maths was horrendous, but science was horrendous. But all of that, all in all, it's great to be a nerd. And I think what makes powerlifting so special, as you said, once you find the rhythm and the system, and it's fun finding the system, right? I think it's the greatest
Yeah.
sport in the world for anyone who is academic, anyone who loves numbers and systems, anyone who's a nerd, really. So, we should see a lot more quants coming into powerlifting and a lot more analysts coming into the sport because it's perfect. How did you find the progressions tracking in terms of what your expectations were?
So with my progress, I think I probably had unrealistic expectations at first of progress, and also I think I underestimated the importance of consistency. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is the key factor, the X factor with powerlifting,
Yeah.
that you have to be consistent. You can't miss sessions. One session missed. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that crazy, but in the progress in the mesocycle within the
Mm.
program that you're running, it can have a huge effect. So just learning to commit to the gym and making sure you get your sessions in, you do your accessories, and that was really the game changer for me in terms of my progress.
Right. Awesome. So tell us about your first competition.
All right. So my first competition was Gauteng's provincials this year, 2025. And I'll just say the reason, as I mentioned, that really kickstarted us was, so I had the mentality of, you know what, I just want to squat 200 kilos first, deadlift so and
Yep.
so, bench this, and then I'll compete. But I
Yep.
think that was just an excuse, and I was just trying to avoid it. But then I found a live stream of yours, I think last year actually, I think it was last year's provincials or nationals. I'm not sure which one, but
Okay.
I saw people having fun, and I saw people with similar numbers, just going out there, and the crowd cheered for them. And I was like, why can't I also do this? And I was just like, no, let me just commit. I signed up early for Gauteng provincials,
Yeah.
and trained for it, did a like actual prep for it, and I think yeah, it was such an amazing experience. I had no plans to do nationals actually, but
Okay.
provincials was so like it was such an experience for me that I was like, you know what, I've already qualified, so I might as well go.
Oh man, that's absolutely awesome. And as I said, when you came up to nationals and told me, I mean, it really meant the world to me. And because this is why we do this, and we've been working so hard at this for many years to build it and to grow it, to bring in lifters to help people discover powerlifting. And really, yeah, you put a big smile on my face. So thank you for that. Absolutely, absolutely awesome. And
My pleasure. And
really,
like you guys, thank you so much for the work that you do and just growing the powerlifting scene and bringing awareness. Like that we have a powerlifting scene here. I think for the longest time, I didn't even know that powerlifting was that big of a sport in South
mm,
Africa until I came across, that
the
live stream.
oh,
So
that's if thank you.
thank you so much for what
And
you guys do.
I suppose no, our absolute pleasure. I mean, that's why we do it, and it means a lot. The thing about that, and which I love, is what you said is it's the live stream is one thing, but when you hear the audience cheer and you're watching the numbers and you're hearing the vibe and the energy and the passion, it's the
For sure.
community, I suppose, ultimately that brought you in, right? Because
Right.
it was hearing that community. So what was your experience like at Gauteng's? What's it been like with the community? I mean, how amazing was Gauteng's as a comp? It was a great venue, light and sunny. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, I was I actually put it in my meet recap afterwards. I was almost overwhelmed by just the support and just how nice everyone was backstage. And obviously the spotters alone this account amazing because I was very nervous, especially my first squad, and they really helped. They gave words of encouragement and the crowd as well. they cheer you, they support you, and they like give you that I don't know what the word is, that support.
Yeah.
So
That
that
X
was
factor,
really
maybe, right?
like
Yeah.
everyone is so nice in the powerlifting community.
Oh,
It's
also, it's an amazing thing that you touch on, and I think it's so important. And I've been fortunate to work with the fantastic South African spotting and loading team overseas twice, both times in Hong Kong. And just when you're there with the athlete, firstly, it's the best seat in the house because you see everything, the fight, the expression, but the opportunity to encourage the lifter. Like the lifters left the coach, they've left their team, they're on the platform alone. I think it makes a big difference. And you sort of alluded to that. How was that for you? Just having the guys there, having your back, literally.
yeah. Yeah, so it was amazing, as I said, and it was new to me because I train alone. I don't have a
Mm,
gym partner. I think I might be the only one in the entire gym who trains for powerlifting. So just having someone there who, as you said, had my back and, was encouraging every single attempt. They were like, "Come on, you got this." And I think just having that positive reinforcement for the first time, really, in my career as a lifter was actually quite an amazing experience.
awesome. So now you go in your first nationals and sorry, your first provincials, you qualify for nationals. Now that's not something that happens with everybody. We have an athlete, Yaniv. He's lovingly known as Docky, our doctor, and it took him 3 years to qualify for nationals. So you get it on your first one. What was nationals like for you?
So nationals, I had a not so great prep, and we can get into that
Hmm.
later if you would like.
Sure.
But nationals as the actual event. So I knew coming in that I could only really push on one of the lifts. Because the other two I was coming in with injuries. So but nationals as the event, obviously I came in, I did what we came for, spoke with my coach, we had a game plan, and I think we executed that. But backstage, the warm-up room, sorry, that was a lot different to provincials as to like it was very much if you don't start warming up on time, if you don't get with a group and start getting into a rack, like so squats, for example, I started warming up too late. And by the time that I was ready to start, all the racks were taken and I had to jump in mid warm-ups with the
Right.
other athletes. Yeah.
I suppose it is, and it's an interesting thing that you say that because it's very much a tradition in Northwest, and I think at nationals, but because we've had so many nationals and international competitions there, that it's just everyone grabs their rack and they go. They're quite
Right.
serious and quite focused with it. And I think also having a lot of athletes from around the country, you sort of got to grab a rack and get
For
yourself
sure.
set. But how was that fitting into a group that was moving? Were the guys happy to have you? It wasn't a problem. They're happy to load and offload for you.
Yes. So yeah, I did eventually manage to find a group to work in with. Um, so yeah, they were amazing considering I was actually holding up everyone because I had to start right from one place and two place and three place. But one of the coaches who was handling the athlete, I should have gotten his name, was really accommodating. I was like, okay, you can work in here and we'll just go quick, 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 offloading and everything. They were so accommodating. So I was
It's
grateful for
great. And
that.
I think the coaches have a lot of coffee and Red Bull in them. So they're really happy just to move plates. So,
Right.
so let's chat a little bit about your prep. How did that go?
Yeah. So prep, as I mentioned, I didn't really have the prep that I wanted. And so after Gautengs, actually the day of, I started having a nagging knee issue. So after squats, I started having a knee issue, and I spoke with my coach before we started prepping for nationals that this was the issue. We tried to work through it and just train as normal, but it eventually became such an issue that I had to stop squatting like 2 weeks out.
Right.
And yeah, and bench as well. The worst thing possible happened. I strained my pec 9 days out. I remember 5 days out, I couldn't bench the bar, and that
Mm.
was really disappointing. And I spoke to my coach that I think we might have to, just withdraw from the competition. But he was able to get me in the right headspace to say, you know what, you've already done all this work, might as well just show up.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm so glad that I was able to do that.
That's absolutely phenomenal. I'm so glad that you did as well, because there is no experience like time on the platform. And,
Yeah.
I've spoken about it a few times where at essays last year, I think it was under 135 on my second attempt, and I popped the second or third, and the shoulder went. I think it's from all that jacking the 300 kilos when, when we were overseas and using only one arm like I should have been switching arms. But so that went, and I think at nationals this year on the bench I opened on 85, and I like 135, 165, sort of play around in that space. But the atmosphere and being there, and the guys fortunately let me go and lift with the ladies, so, because we had another live stream that afternoon, and just hanging out with the girls, and it was so much fun. It's in the reason I'm telling the story is anyone who's listening that might be in a similar position to you or have been in a similar position. If you're injured and you've paid for the comp, you've trained for the comp, you've got everything in place that you need, go and compete, be kind to yourself, give yourself a break, and just go and get the experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how was it for you being at SAs? Firstly, what did you think of that blue carpet and the banner and the setup?
Yeah. Yeah, that was very different to what I experienced at provincials. So with being at SA, I think it was a bigger stage, more people, more eyes on you, more just elite athletes, like the caliber of athletes that were there was just surreal to experience.
Yeah,
So that
absolutely.
was definitely the
Awesome.
experience.
How did you find sort of the community in the waiting area? We've spoken a little bit about the warm up room for you fitting in, and what was it like being in the back in the waiting area? Were you able to work with one of the coaches there as a handler to sort of just help you a bit, or were you sort of doing everything on your own?
Yeah. So I was handling myself throughout the meet. But I think that was just because I didn't find someone to ask. I'm sure if I asked somebody would have definitely helped out,
Absolutely.
but I'm more introverted, so I didn't really know how to go about that. But I think in the waiting area, it was it was a good experience, a good environment. All the athletes that were in the same flight, they were all very much receptive and just willing to help out as much as they could.
Yeah.
So that was
Awesome. So, so some advice for you on that. And always at a competition, if Heather's there, you can ask Heather. Just obviously not when the comp's running. Just while we're setting up, Heather, I don't have anyone to handle me. Can you, who do you suggest? She's South Africa's powerlifting mom. So she looks after everybody, and it's really supportive. So talking about that sort of side of it, the post lifting and there were a lot. I mean, there was some great audience there. You lifted in like a good strong session. There was great support from the audience. What was it like for you after the comp?
so after the comp. So we had the same day, we had the 105, right? So
Mm.
after the comp, I went to sit in the crowd, and man, that was such an experience for the first time being in the crowd at a powerlifting meet, and yeah, the energy was just amazing, and just being a part of that. We had Nicholas. Okay, so we had Nicholas
Just
Dupree
say Nicholas Monster.
and yeah,
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 He was next to
lifting
you on
the
the front. Yeah,
105s and Jacob as well.
yeah.
So that was just amazing when they came out for their attempts, their record attempts, and just seeing how the crowd got behind them. I think there was a time for Nicholas's third squat attempt, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. I think he loaded 700, which is a huge milestone squat, and like half the room were on their feet just to show him that support and that respect. And that, I think that gave me goosebumps,
Yeah.
to witness. And like, definitely, just I had the experience on both sides, as a lifter and as a spectator, and I think that was just amazing.
It, it's such a great thing to have that experience for both. And it always breaks my heart when I see lifters rush in, compete, and leave, and they don't stay to experience what's going on, either to give support or just to get a sense of the vibe. And what I love about Poch as well is that you can sit in the audience and talk to anyone, whether they're
Yeah,
supporting someone for the first time or they're just well established, and it's an awesome thing to see. So a question for you was a couple of my favorite questions. Why should someone get involved in powerlifting?
right. Yeah, so that is definitely a loaded question. I would say personally,
100%. Of course, it's a loaded question. All right. So let me ask you this then. Why should an introverted bookworm nerd get involved in powerlifting?
right. So I think powerlifting, if I were to describe it in one word, is just self-improvement. I think all sports are about
Mm,
self-improvement, but I think powerlifting really is more than any other sport that I can think of, a sport of self-improvement. And I think you discover so much about yourself, when you train in the gym with those heavy weights, or even the light weights that, build up that capacity to do the heavier weights. You find out so much about yourself. You discover new parts of your personality that you didn't know was there. And I think it just gives you so much confidence to just be like, hey, I'm the only one in this room that can deadlift, I don't know, 200 kilograms or whatever. So I
it's
think
very
if
cool.
you're introverted, you're not really someone who's sporty, or you never played sports or whatever. I think powerlifting is a good sport to get into.
And I think it just, for what you've said, I mean, that's one of the best answers that we've had to that question. So thank you. And it's the linear progression that is so wonderful. And then, as you said earlier on about the consistency,
Right.
it teaches you to be consistent. You can carry that lesson through to other areas of your life, but it's that linear progression that I'm here, I got to get to here, this is the work that I've got to do. It makes it
Yeah.
more sustainable, right? Where you can be grading in martial arts and fighting and working, and you're never making your black belt, or you're not beating any of the other guys because maybe you're in a dojo where everyone's world class, and you're just national class. But with powerlifting, you always see your progression based on the amount of work that you put in, both in your training and your recovery.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, for
absolutely
sure.
awesome. For sure.
And
Yeah.
and I think powerlifting as well can teach us a lot about just life in general, and like how to get things done and how to progress in life. So for example, I found last year, I think last year was the year that I really made the most progress in my powerlifting, and that was just learning to be consistent and just not miss sessions. And I think I found, as a student personally, that helped me as well, just to learn to be consistent and say, okay, so if I okay, so I have 4 sessions a week of squatting, and I never of sorry of
Mm.
going to the gym, and I never miss them. And can I also take the same consistency and bring it into what I do as a student? And I think I managed to do that. And yeah, so I think last year I actually had the best year, both as a lifter and also as a scholar, if you could
Right.
say that. And also I learned that the two can feed into each other.
And I think that's such a wonderful point. And if we could expand on that, how is the lifting, not just for what it teaches you about yourself and teaching you about consistency and hard work, and that you're capable of doing so much more than you believed, but how has it helped you in terms of clearing your head, taking a break from studying?
Yeah, sure. So I think, yeah, the lifting does help as an outlet, right? So I think the lifting as well can teach you certain things that you can also apply in your academics as a student. And yeah, it's just something else So as a student, I think it's good to have many hats that you can
Hmm.
put on, or just many interests and hobbies. And I think being a well-rounded individual in that way as well can really help you give your best um, in your academics and just all your endeavors in general.
100%. Very, very well said. And I think just on that, in terms of giving your best, it took courage to show up for nationals, knowing that you weren't going to be able to perform at your very best. And and I'm sure it was definitely worthwhile. By the way, I was going to say Hani, the competition organizer, is watching on the stream, so you better say it was worthwhile. Uh, but
Well, see,
for you going forward now, what are your plans? Going to keep training, come back to provincials, back to nationals next year, and then look at making the team? What's the goal?
yeah. So the goal right now is just to, so the top priority is just to rehab the injuries. But as soon as we are out of the woods with that, the plan, of course, is just to have a really long off season, prepare for provincials next year, qualify for nationals, and just put out the best package that I know I can put out on the platform.
Okay, 100%. For you also, have you considered, and I know being an introvert, because for me, I love time on my own. I mean, you wouldn't think I was the announcer running around and taking photos, but that's just too much fun because you got to create that atmosphere. You got to keep the crowd fueled. I've got to be the Red Bull for the crowd. But for excuse me. I've actually completely forgotten where I was going with that. Sorry, I'm having too much fun in, in this conversation.
Yeah.
So I think for
Okay.
just for you training on your own is looking at going to other gyms, perhaps to go try out different gyms in Gauteng, just to meet the guys and go and chat, phone them up and say, hey, can I come and do a session? Is that something that you've considered, or you more comfortable in your space training with yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I do think that there is a lot of importance to training at a powerlifting gym. Obviously, we have just training on competition equipment and also just the energy of
Hmm.
training with people who have the same goal, the same drive. I think that is a huge part, that can play a huge part in an athlete's development. So ideally, I would like to train at a powerlifting gym, but so where I am right now, um, all the powerlifting gyms, unfortunately, are like very far away,
Yeah.
so transportation would be a huge cost. But I'm very much open to visiting
So
some of these
yeah.
gyms, like Powerful Queens, for
Mm.
example. It would be great to visit there. So many great athletes train at that gym.
And
So yeah,
yeah,
that is something on my.
100%. And I know with the gyms, they really are fantastic. And the passion of the South African coaches, I mean, the passion of all powerlifting coaches is amazing. And I know, like, if you message them or just reached out to, hey, can I pop through? Do you have sort of like an open day on the week? Can I come and train with you guys? I really appreciate it. I don't think there's a single gym in this country that would say no to you. By the way, you have a message here from Chad. And let me just shrink it down so that we can get it here onto the stream. Chad Liam Polly says, Hola!
Yeah. Hi, Chad. So, Chad, I really need to give a shout out to Chad because at Provincials, Chad was basically my de facto handler,
Okay.
even though he was competing in the same flight. And I told him during weigh-ins, I believe that, oh, this is my first meet, I'm new here. And immediately Chad just like, okay, I got you. And he just really helped me choosing the temps, timing, when to start warming up. So, yeah, shout out to you, Chad.
A big shout out to you, Chad. We got to give him one of those. Yeah. And because I think it is that's what powerlifting is, and we're all an ambassador for the sport at every competition, whether we're a spectator, a photographer, streamer, announcer, coach, handler, whoever. We're really all representing, and I think we have such a love and a passion for this wonderful sport of ours that we just want to make everyone else happy. So it's yep, definitely big shout out, Chad. Well done, dude. Very, very cool. So now for you, sort of your future, you spoke about sort of coming back strong for essays. Do you see anything perhaps down the line in terms of coming into a referee clinic? looking at refereeing, maybe looking at getting involved in coaching? I know this is quite far down the line for someone new in the career, but are these some of your, something you may be considering?
Oh, yes. So definitely. So I think one thing I noticed is that powerlifting is just I think this whole sport in this country is just held together by people just doing things as a labor of love. And just I think that was really inspiring. At provincials and at nationals, we had lifters who were lifting during, the championships, but there were also judges, there were also referees. They were um, chaperoning lifters onto the platform. And I think that was really great to see. And I think definitely refereeing, I would even like to get into volunteering for spotting and loading. And for sure, I just really want to give back to the sport because you see so many people who've given so much to it.
That's awesome. So all you got to do is reach out and get in touch with the federation guys, with Heather, with the others. Hey, want to help with spotting and loading? Start at a provincial comp or a club comp. Great place to learn. Our guys are phenomenal. I truly believe they are the best in the world, and I've got to work with them at international level, so I can say that. And then yeah, like there's coaching clinics, there's referee clinics. All of these things are available, and the fact that you want to give back makes you such a wonderful ambassador and member for the sport, because you brought a great energy to your lifting and to the time when you were in the audience as well. So, which was awesome to see. Got another message here for you. I'm going to try and shrink this down. So, Susie2 says, just wanted to pop in to say, what a guest. So glad to have met him. So, that's from Susie2.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think I know who that is as well. So
Okay,
yeah,
awesome. Well, Susie, too, drop us your name. Let us know your name if you want to. And yeah, you're getting a lot of love on the podcast, man, which is awesome to see. So very, very
thank
cool.
you for that as well. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So two fun questions, sort of, as we usually wrap up. But I thought let me go to them now. What's your favorite thing about powerlifting?
So yeah, my favorite thing about powerlifting. Uh, there's a lot of things I like about powerlifting, but I think it's just how much the sport is growing and like the potential of powerlifting to become mainstream. I think right now powerlifting is a really good place just globally, but
Yes.
also in South Africa. I think all the provincial teams are starting to really come together, and I'm just very much excited for the future and the growth of the sport.
Of the sport. Ah, fantastic. That's and sorry about that. It's Zethan saying hi.
I knew it was it.
So you got it right. Yeah. It's the only challenge with this format that I try to keep for Instagram, that we get it gets a bit narrow. Thank you, Zethan, for your comments. Absolutely so true. Like, we got to grow the sport, and just give people the opportunity to experience this amazing sport of ours. So a bit of fun as well. What drives you mad about powerlifting?
Okay, so I mean that's a very difficult question.
You can say nothing. It doesn't. There doesn't have to be anything.
I would say the up down rule
Okay.
on specific lifts. On deadlifts, I kind of get it because of the hitching, but I think the downward movement rule can be very cruel to lifters. So yeah, that's probably the only thing that I have an issue with. But I think I just love everything about the
Okay, for
sport.
sure. No, and as a referee, it's incredibly challenging because you got to be looking for downward movement, for example, in the bench on the whole of the bar, right? So it's got to be. So if you're watching, the one side is going up, the other side, it's really. But you don't just know that the referees are working very hard to make sure they can pass. If the lift is in any way possible, they're going to want to pass that lift. So yeah, I don't know if I shared this story with you. I have before on the podcast, but I stopped competing and I got back into competing after a year or so. Well, I think I was coming back from an injury, and my first, I think it was nationals, probably about 2015, 2016. And I went out to squat and I was still injured and I opened on 125, I think. And I went all the way down, as I'm coming up, I thought, no, that's not deep enough. And I went down again. I went down, basically down, and came up 2/3, went down again and came up. And everybody's just looking at me, the audience, Heather, my coach, Rodney at the time, were just looking at me like, what are you doing? So yeah, I've got a special relationship with the up-down rule. Maybe I'm the reason they put it in place to keep me safe, for sure. Is there anything that you would like to share or touch on or talk about with regards to powerlifting, your powerlifting, anything that you want to share?
I think I would just like to say, powerlifting, I think, has really contributed a lot to the person I am today. And I think my experience so far competing has been really positive, and I just want to thank everyone who's helped me make it this far into the sport to even get to a national stage. So like I could get into it in detail, but let's just say a lot of people have really contributed to my powerlifting journey. And yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has supported me in whatever way they could. So
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you, dude. And I'd like to say just a shout out to all of the fantastic gyms in Gauteng and around the country. If you watch this, just drop all a message. Just say to him, "Hey, dude, come through and let's get him training on the equipment in that atmosphere." Because if you think that a competition can get loud, you should see what happens in the gym sometimes on some of the days when the athletes are fighting for PBs and stuff. So I'm sure they'll be getting in touch with you. Well, it's been absolutely awesome talking to you, man. Thank you so much. Really appreciate what you share.
all right. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
And by the way, sorry, I missed one. It might be from the same Z commenting on both platforms. Ola, what a guy, such a great person. Glad to have met him. So there you go. Everybody loves you, dude. It's time to run for IPF president. So, okay.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that, Z.
No, only a pleasure, man. Really, it's been awesome to have you on the show. I'm going to end the live stream and then I'll just chat to you quickly off air. All right, groovy. Thank you so much.